Hi, I'm Kristen Amdahl and welcome to my studio. In this video, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for making one of my patterns. Let's get started. This is the Barbara Easy Knit Twisted Mobius or Tubular Cowl pattern. This is a really easy stitch pattern that makes a pretty and reversible fabric. In order to offer this project with both the Twisted Mobius or Tubular Cowl options, the stitch count is different by 1/2 repeat, so the pattern lines up beautifully at the seam. You're going to need one ball of Be So Easy yarn, which is my number 5 bulky weight yarn, and a size US 13 or 9mm set of knitting needles. The sample shown in the photos is in color Pink Lemonade. All right, so let's cast on our stitches. I'm going to do a reduced size sample to show you the stitch pattern, but you'll want to cast on an even multiple of 3 stitches for the cowl or an odd multiple of 3 stitches for the Mobius twisted cowl. You want to start with a slip knot and slide that onto your knitting needle. Now, holding your tail in front and your working yarn behind you, make a loop around your thumb with the tail and insert your knitting needle to pull a loop of the working yarn through the loop of the tail yarn and slide that onto your knitting needle. The slip knot counts as our first stitch and that is our second stitch. Notice I'm not tightening this up a whole lot. I like my cast on to be a little on the loose side. And we'll continue to do this. Again, if you're making the tubular cowl, you want an even multiple of 3, so like 6, 12, 18, 24, like that, or an odd multiple of 3 for the twisted Mobius, and that would be 3, 9, 15, 21. So if you're doing the pattern as written, the tubular cowl, you would cast on 72 stitches, and the twisted Mobius cowl, you would cast on 75 stitches. All right, this is what your project should look like after you finish casting on. You'll want to refer back to your pattern to see how the rows are slightly different from the tubular cowl to the twisted cowl. I'll be showing you how to do the stitch pattern for the tubular cowl, which means I've done an even multiple of 3 stitches. The written instructions are spelled out completely for both patterns, and the links are all in the video description. Row 1 starts with knit 3, purl 3. So we'll knit 3 stitches, and then purl 3 stitches, moving our yarn to the front. Then knit 3 stitches, moving the yarn to the back of the work. So when we're knitting, our yarn's in the back and we're working from left to right into the next stitch and pulling a loop through the loop. And then to purl 3 stitches, we move the yarn to the front of the work, then inserting from right to left in the front of the stitch, yarn over and pull a loop through the loop. And you want to repeat that all the way across. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 1 for the tubular cowl. Rows 2 through 4 are a repeat of row 1. Knit 3, purl 3. And repeat it all the way across. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 4 for the tubular cowl. Row 5 begins with purl 3. So we'll move our yarn to the front of our work and insert our knitting needle from right to left into the front of the first stitch and purl 2, 3. Then move our yarn to the back of the work and knit 2, 3. So what we're doing now, up until now, we were always working the stitch as it presented itself to us. So on the knit stitches we knit and on the purl stitches we purled. And now we're ready to begin a next section of our basket weave tiles. This stitch pattern is called basket weave, but you can see we have these tiles here. And so we did 4 rows in knit here, then 4 rows in purl, 4 rows in purl here, and 4 rows in knit. So that's what we're doing now. We're starting the next set of tiles. So the repeat for row 5 is purl 3, knit 3, and you want to repeat that all the way across. And this is what your work should look like at the end of row 5. Rows 6 through 8 are a repeat of row 5, meaning that we will purl 3, and knit 3 across each of these 3 rows. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 8. You want to repeat rows 1 through 8 2 more times for a total of 24 rows, and then bind off all the stitches, leaving a long tail for sewing. How we bind this off is we knit the first 2 stitches, then take the first stitch and pass it up and over the second stitch and off the needle. Knit 1 more stitch, then pass the previous stitch up and over and off the needle. Knit the next stitch, pass the previous stitch up and over and off the needle. And you want to repeat that all the way across. Next, I'll show you slight variations in the stitch pattern for doing the twisted Mobius. Okay, now I've cast on an odd multiple of 3 stitches here, or I've cast on 15 stitches to show you the stitch pattern variation for the twisted Mobius cowl. In the actual pattern, this would be 75 stitches, but let's begin with row 1. So row 1, the repeat is knit 3, purl 3, and you want to repeat that across to the last stitches, then knit 3. So it's knit 3, and purl 3, then you're going to work across the row, continuing knit 3, purl 3 until you get to the last 3 stitches, and then knit the last 3. And this is what your work should look like at the end of row 1. Row 2 starts with purl 3, knit 3. So we're going to purl the first 3 stitches, then knit the next 3 stitches, and repeat this across to the last 3 stitches, then purl the last 3 stitches. And this is what your work should look like at the end of row 2. You want to, for rows 3 and 4, you want to repeat rows 1 and 2 one more time. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 4. Row 5 begins with purl 3, knit 3, and that's our repeat. So we're going to repeat purl 3, and knit 3 across the row until we get to the last 3 stitches, and then purl the last 3 stitches. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 5. Row 6 starts with a repeat of knit 3, purl 3. So we'll knit 3 and purl 3. Then we'll repeat knit 3, purl 3 across the row until we get to the last 3 stitches and purl the last 3 stitches. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 6. For rows 7 and 8, you want to repeat rows 5 and 6 one more time. For rows 9 through 27, you want to repeat rows 1 through 8 2 more times, then rows 1 through 4 once more. Bind off all stitches, leaving long tail for sewing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please feel welcome to leave them for me in the comments. Everything we talked about in this video is also linked in the video description. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.